Coming up next, Sitting at 30 takes you downtown for the weekly luncheon meeting of the City Club of Portland. Live weekly coverage of City Club is produced through the facilities of Portland Cable Access. Now we join the City Club for this week's program.
And Tim McMahon, attorney Stoll Reeves, would you, and Lynn Dingler, staff of Diana Lynn, would you please stand? On Friday, March the 17th, join us as we welcome a former City Club member and longtime Portlander back to the podium, Rodney Page, Executive Director of Church World Services, who will be with us to share some of his perspectives about conditions in some of the most troubled areas of the world. Come and hear his firsthand experience of globalization, debt, and sanctions. It'll be here at the Multnomah Athletic Club. Our membership campaign is well underway, which ends March 31st. We're pretty close to goal with having some 75 new members. If you are interested in membership, there are applications in the back of the room. Please note on your table today is a notice and sign-up sheet for your visit to one of our public schools during the week of April the 24th to 28th. This is part of a back-to-school week. The program is sponsored by the State Organization for Schools in an effort to reconnect Oregon citizens to our public schools. Our City Club Education Committee is organizing visits for City Club members. If you're interested, please sign up on the green sign-up sheet on your tables. You will be contacted about a visit to a school near you. Our board host today, and a member of a community college, and also a member of our Board of Governors, and is Director of the General Services for the City Club of Portland. He will ask the first question of our speakers. Following Dave's question, members of the City Club may ask questions. Please identify yourself and as a member of the club. Our sponsors today are Barney and Worth, Kaiser Permanente Health System, and Wells Fargo Bank. We're very grateful for their support. The community colleges have steadily grown over the past several decades, taking on programs and providing help to our communities, often in unheralded ways. A sleeping giant. Today we'll hear more about the system with over 150,000 students in the metropolitan area of Portland. Dan Moriarty is president of Portland Community College. John Kaiser, president of Clackamas Community College, and Joel Vela, president of Mount Hood Community College. Dan has been president of Portland Community College since 1986. He has extensive involvement in local and statewide and national educational activities. His civic involvement include board memberships on the Private Industry Council, Portland Leaders Roundtable, and St. Vincent's Advisory Board, to name a few. A native of New York, he holds undergraduate and master's degree from Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and an educational degree from George Washington University. John has served as president of Clackamas Community College since 1985. He's also been extensively involved in the communities where he's worked, be it Clackamas County, Lynn Benton, or Mount Hood Community College. He's been widely recognized for his leadership and his service. He also has served extensively on regional and national boards associated with community colleges and higher education. At an earlier time, John was given a Fulbright scholarship to study the educational system in China. He did his undergraduate, graduate, and PhD work at the University of Colorado. Joel Vela is the fourth president of Mount Hood Community College. He was appointed in 1996. Prior to his appointment, he served as president of Palo Alto College in San Antonio, Texas. The Mount Hood Community College Board hired him with the aim of expanding enrollment and strengthening the college's connection to the community. This last year, the school has the highest enrollment in its history, and the college contact with the community has been involved in hosting the Nike World Master Games and sponsor of the Mount Hood Community Festival. He's active in the Mount Hood Jazz Festival, Gresham Rotary, and the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, to name a few. He holds undergraduate degrees in art and social studies, a master's in education and history, and a doctorate in education. Gentlemen, what's going on in the community colleges?
Thank you very much, Lloyd, and greetings to all. And I understand there's also a radio audience that will be out there on Monday. Greetings to them. It's a pleasure for all of us to be here at the City Club to talk to you about our favorite topic. And our favorite topic is the community college. In a way, if you're introducing a prominent friend, you might say the person needs no introduction. And I'd like to think, in a way, the community college does not need an introduction. If you all are representative, and you may be over-representative, of the students who go to our community colleges, 1 in 10 of you is currently a student at the community college. And over the last 3 years, 1 in 5. Now, I might say that actually 1 in 10 of you is employed, and 1 in 5 has been employed, and looking around this audience. But in fact, we, in the past year, educated over 150,000 students in the metropolitan area, and that's a lot of people. The students were an integral part of the landscape, the educational landscape of this community, and have been now for over 40 years. The students that come to our college, as you might know, and some of you had this, they come to us for a variety of reasons. And just instead of listening to that, I'd like to think about some of the articles, or share with you some headlines from articles that appeared in the Oregonian that give some sense of what it is that we do for the community and for our individual students. So, one recent headline read, "Agency lands $20 million for youth jobs." And that particular article describes PCC's role in securing a $20 million grant from the Department of Labor to provide education and job training for youth in Northeast, and downtown Portland. Another headline, "High school students get jump on their college education." This article describes the community college's role in helping high school students get a jump start earning college credits and thus save thousands of dollars toward future tuition. Another article, "Sparking an interest in industry." That particular article described the community college's role in helping new immigrants to this country find a place in local industry. Another article, "OSU and PCC shake hands on overlapping admissions." You can tell I did not make up the titles of these articles. This particular article describes PCC's partnership with Oregon State University to admit simultaneously students who come to PCC for business and for engineering. And a final article, "In Silicon Forest, the call goes out for workers." And this article describes the efforts of community colleges to train manufacturing technicians for Intel, Fujitsu, and other high-tech companies throughout the metropolitan area. This gives you some feel for the variety of things that community colleges do, and kind of reflects the mission of the community college, which happens to be to provide the first 2 years of the baccalaureate education. And in fact, that happens to be the largest number of our students. It's a traditional role, a traditional model. It was what community colleges were set up for in the very beginning. We also provide technical professional education, and we do it off the shelf in prepackaged programs, and we do customized training, and that's very important. Another important part of our mission is literacy training, and we do that for thousands of students with our English as a Second Language program and adult basic education and GED, et cetera. Now, we do this directly, and we do it in partnership with a lot of other groups and associations in the community, and Dr. Vela is going to talk more about that partnership. We share this mission with other community colleges around the country. And I don't know if you all know this, but there are 1,132 community colleges in the 50 states. And the community college model, in fact, has become a premier model for education throughout the developing countries and in Europe. So there's a lot of play for community college, because it really is a unique American institution. And give you some idea of the scope of what these 1,132 colleges do. In this country, there are about 15 million students in post-secondary education. Of the 15 million students, 6.7 are in community colleges. And that doesn't count the non-credit. If you count the non-credit, there are probably about 15 million students across the country in community colleges. In Oregon, just to give you a sample again of some numbers and the impact, the 3 colleges that you see represented today educate as many first and second year college students in those 3 colleges as does the entire Oregon University system. Those are big numbers. It comes around 21, 22, 23,000 students. So the numbers that I mentioned here is just to give you some idea of the magnitude across the country and what it is that we're doing locally in Oregon, and especially in the metropolitan community. We are making an impact. Now, there's a certain irony about community colleges and how they've developed nationally and locally. In fact, we're going to be celebrating the 101st anniversary of community colleges in 2001, which is really the first year of the new millennium. The first year, we don't want to go into that. The first year of the first community college was established as a Joliet Junior College. And interestingly enough, it was established by the president of the University of Chicago, William Rainey Harper, and his colleagues at the University of Michigan and at Berkeley. They had this notion of the university model of higher education, or the European model, rather. And the European model meant you would do the last 2 years of the major, and then you would do graduate education. And then they were very conscious of the teeming masses that were kind of unloading off the boats, I think, in New York and other places, and who was going to deal with them, and how were they going to preserve the mission of the university. So they thought they would establish these public two-year colleges, because we had private, but public two-year colleges across the country that would begin to absorb some of those masses, provide some education, and also serve as a screening device for people who would go on to the university. But those colleges, that whole scheme failed, by the way, because universities could not get unburden themselves from the first 2 years, quote unquote, and the community colleges just took on it and have a life of their own and are educating now almost 7 million students across the country. In Oregon, what's interesting is when we were first established, we were established, as the legislation says, to fill a gap in education. So if you have this image in your head of blocks, so you had K-12 block, then you had the university block, and someone saw a little crack between the 2 blocks, and they said that was a gap, and it needed to be filled, and here we all are. Actually, the language is a little more eloquent than that, but they do use the word gap, and we were seen basically as a gap player, a niche player, and so forth. Well, actually what happened is there was more than a gap. There was a whole big chasm there, and the community colleges stepped into it, and not unlike the national model, began to develop a life of our own here, and have, in the state, there are over 300,000 students in community colleges, and some of the largest community colleges are right here in the metropolitan area. Some things have not changed, however. My sense is that community colleges in this state are still seen as niche players, somewhat tangential to the main business of education. I'm not sure that's a perception that's shared by everyone, but the legislation continues to talk about that. And when you get to the legislature and you start talking about resources to run our colleges, you're looking at K-12, you're looking at higher ed, and then there are the community colleges. In fact, a lot of things have changed. Our programs and services have grown and expanded, and then there's this thing called Measure 5. and Measure 50, also known as Measure 47. And that changed radically the funding of community colleges. So we've always said, well, we're local community colleges, and we work with our local taxpayers, and that's where we get the bulk of our resources. So when I came to Oregon in 1986, the resources were about 25 or 26% from the state. That's gone. It's changed. So now we are, in fact, a state-funded system of local community colleges that deliver their services locally. But the perception is still out there, I think, that somehow we're local colleges and we're driven locally, and the fact of the matter is the resources aren't there. In our case, we get almost 65% of our dollars from the state. We get another 25% from tuition, and the local taxpayer is much more like 10%. The tax bill when I came here for our college was 96 cents, and it's now down to 36 cents. That's not because we're so terribly efficient. It's a question of Measure 5 has changed everything. But I think there's a dissonance here that constitutes a problem about what community colleges are now and what they might become in the future. And I think we need to think about where are we going to be in the next 10 years. And I think we need to start thinking more of ourselves as a system of community colleges that work locally but are really part of a statewide priority. And I think that's important. We're part of the resources of the state, and we need to be seen in that way. And I'm not sure that the legislature has seen it that way, although we are very heartened by the words of the governor and his plans in the future, and what some other legislators are doing to kind of come forward and say, we want to be involved, we want to champion the cause of community colleges. And we don't want to get in the business of vying or competing. We want to say that community colleges have grown, have become an extremely valuable resource to the people of our community, to the everyday citizens of our community, to the rank and file who come to us for access to improve themselves in a variety of ways, whether it's to work for Intel, whether it is to learn English for the first time, or begin their baccalaureate education, or to get a leg up on what it is they want to do in their life. And I always say, in the beginning of the year, when the 38,000 students show up, it's a time for celebration because it's a statement of optimism on the part of people. People who come to school are optimistic people, and we're so delighted to welcome them all. We have a lot of work to do as presidents and staff to spread the word about community colleges, what it is we do. It's an unending task, and we need to articulate that better. So we're going to work at that. But certainly our greatest treasure is our students, and we value them very much. Thank you, and I'd like to turn now to Dr. Vela.
Good afternoon, and it's my pleasure as well to stand before you today. Little did I know that 4 years ago when I was sitting in San Antonio that I, on March the 10th, would be sitting at the City Club, before the City Club at the Mac Club in downtown Portland. Little did I know that when I was born, I won't tell you when, but it was in the past millennium, that that the son of a migrant workers would again be standing before you in this capacity as president of Mount Hood Community College. It's a great pleasure for me for many, many, many reasons. First of all, in having come to Oregon with my family, I first realized the importance that the natural resources play in this wonderful state. We as Oregonians take great pride in preserving our natural resources, whether that be our waters, whether that be our fisheries, whether that be our timber. But I implore you this afternoon to look beyond those natural resources and implore you to make the biggest investment that we can make, and that investment is in our human resource. For if we fail to do so, we as Oregonians will not have fulfilled our mission. We as Oregonians would have failed to plan for a better tomorrow for our future. And if you want to take a look at our future, all I ask you to do is to walk into your first and second grade classes of today. And I ask you to compare that composition to the seniors that will be graduating in the class of the year 2000. To put it in perspective, a recent study commissioned by the Multnomah Progress Board indicated that since 1993 to the year 1999-2000, the composition of ESL students in our K through 12 systems has increased by approximately 230%. So if we believe that our demographics are in fact reflecting the demographics of the 70s and the 80s, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to not only turn on the lights, but I ask each and every one of us to wake up and face the reality that our workforce of tomorrow is in fact sitting in our first and second grade classrooms. And if we failed to complete the obligation that each one of us has to ensure that those students are well prepared to enter the workforce, then we will be the recipients of our own disinvolvement, of our own disengagement, and we will pay those consequences. Because we as community colleges fulfill many missions. As Dr. Moriarty has already indicated, we are the largest contributor of transfer students to our receiving institutions. And to put that also into perspective, if you were to compare the grade point ratios or the grade point averages, whichever acronym you would like to use, of our transfer students and compare those GPAs to the GPAs of the cohorts initially recruited by the Oregon University system, you will find that our students perform significantly higher as juniors and seniors than students that were originally recruited by those four-year institutions. We are also the provider, the main provider of training for private industry. Under the leadership of Michael Dillon, one of our deans, we at Mount Hood created the industry-based associate's degree, a degree that is designed exclusively for the corporation with whom we engage. And here to date, those have included such corporations as LSI, R.R. Donnelly. We have just recently completed a 2-year degree proposal that we will submit to the state board for TriMet. We have also concluded one for AMR. That is our second mission. One, to prepare students to transfer. Secondly, to prepare students to enter the world of work. Thirdly, we have by far the largest composition of students receiving remedial/developmental education, whether that be the ABE, whether that be GED, or whether that be ESL. And again, I ask you to take a look at our neighborhoods and the realization that our ESL population is in fact growing. Those will be the students that we will be serving lock, stock, and barrel in the next 5 to 10 years. That is our future. To also put it in perspective, as Dr. Moriarty indicated in his opening comments, I don't know how many individuals are assembled here this afternoon, but I would guesstimate approximately 100 and 150. What I'm driving at here is that 1 in 9 of you would have participated in a community college activity in a credit class format this past fall term. 11% of Oregonians engaged themselves in a community college this past fall. Community colleges also have the largest enrollment of minority students of all of the educational institutions providing higher education in the state of Oregon. And again, I ask us to reaffirm that commitment. We provide comprehensive classes. We provide access, whether that be through distance education, whether that be through regional centers, or whether that be provided through institutions that compose our brick and mortar at our main campuses. We are also extremely affordable. The tuition, by and large, for students across the state of Oregon is approximately $36 to $37 in tuition. We go about the business of building communities. Building communities, whether that be through our K-12 partners, whether that be through our private sector partners. If you were to walk into East County, and if you were to ask individuals with whom we do business, the list would be extensive. If you drive a domestic car that is not produced by General Motors, but rather one that is produced by Chrysler or by Ford, the probability is 100% that the technician working on that vehicle was trained at Mount Hood. If you drive one that is developed and put together by GMC, the probability is that he or she was trained at Portland Community College, the college the other side of the river. We are also part and parcel of the Oregon Advanced Technology Center. a consortium involving 14 community colleges whose main purpose, again, is to engage the private sector to prepare our students to prepare the workforce of tomorrow. Am I passionate about this? As we say out in the Southwest, you're dadgum right, we are. You're darn tootin'. And we're fixing to getting around to the closure here. But again, it is indeed a pleasure. It is a pleasure to be part and parcel of the 17 community colleges in the wonderful state of Oregon. It is wonderful to be part and parcel of a state that is committed to preserving its resources. And I ask you to engage with us this afternoon to ensure and to assure that we make the greatest preservation that we can, and that is to preserve our human resource. The adage that a mind is a horrible thing to waste is very much of a truism, because we only have one opportunity to create our tomorrow, and that opportunity is today. Thank you very much.
It's a privilege for me to be here. My name's John Kaiser, and I've been at Clackamas Community College about 15 years. Before that, I did have the privilege of working at Mount Hood and Lynn Benton Community Colleges. What I'd like to do is two things. One, to summarize the situation generally that we have in Oregon, try to pick up on several of the themes that Dan and Joel have mentioned, and then to talk about what our response is, what our response is in process of being, at the very least. And our situation generally is that one that you've heard and is a familiar theme with so many other aspects of our infrastructure: flat resources, growing demand for services, growing demand for what we offer at the community college. At Clackamas, our budget's really been about the same. Our general fund resources really have been about the same for 5 years, and our enrollment has increased 25% during that time. And all the colleges in this state are generally faced with a similar dilemma. And I'd like to respond to really 4 basic strands of a solution. Hopefully those strands come together in a safety rope that will cause us to enter the future much more effectively. Because if we stay on the trend line that we've been on, we're in trouble. We're in real trouble in the state. I think Joel's plea for support for the human resource, all of you, I'm sure, have a common identification with that. That resonates, I think, very strongly with those of us that work to strengthen communities in a variety of ways, and certainly the City Club has been on the forefront of that. So there are 4 things that we've been working on. First, something that we've had to do. It's probably created some healthy dynamics, and that's cut overhead. And all the colleges have been engaged in that. We have fewer staff now than we did several years ago. At Clackamas, it's 16. We reduced the cost per student by $300. I think statewide it's in excess of $100 reduction in cost per student. The second thing we've tried to do is aggressively look for alternative resources. Now, we've done that over the years, and I think that's been the healthy core of community colleges by creating partnerships, joining with a whole variety of organizations in our community. Creates sort of a different dynamic in each community because community colleges reflect that community differently and uniquely. But those partnerships have meant we've been able to extend resources, figure out different ways to get the job done, and never take the answer that there isn't enough money to get the job done. That here's a need, let's figure out a way to do it. And looking for alternative resources goes well beyond sort of the simple partnerships of building programs. We have all tried to be very aggressive in developing our college foundations, private fundraising arms of the college. And at Clackamas, and this is just an example of what's going on at the other community colleges as well, we have a foundation board that's set their sights on a $13 million endowment by the year 2005 to fill a lot of the gaps, the scholarships, the student needs, the equipment, to create the kind of infrastructure support for the long term that will meet the need, the growth that certainly we're all experiencing and will continue to escalate. The third thing that we've tried to do is to work very hard on delivering our message to the state. Now, this has been a dilemma. Dan mentioned it, I think, very well. Our greatest strength many times has been our greatest weakness. Our strength is our community connectedness, the ability that we've had, I think, to solve a variety of local problems and work with people in solving a variety of local problems. But it translated into the state arena and sometimes into the national arena. It's been more challenging to deliver that message. Many times legislators aren't as familiar with community colleges, and we've tried very hard to deliver a stronger message that we are growing faster, that we'll continue to grow faster, that we will need resource support, that the state really has become the chief funding agency for community colleges, and we're going to need more help in the future. So we're talking a lot with the governor and with legislators as a potential third solution to this dilemma that we're facing. And the fourth thing that we've done, and all the colleges here have done it in the last couple of years or are about to do it, and that is to go to the local people and ask for bond measure support to help with growing infrastructure needs. It's the only measure that we have. We used to be able to go and ask for local operational support. We no longer can do that. It's the only means that we have to meet rapidly growing needs for classrooms and equipment, to take care of aging facilities, to update technologies. And this is something the state hasn't helped us with either. The state hasn't helped us since 1992 with any kind of facility support. So it indeed is part of that dilemma. So I think we're trying to be very proactive. We need help in understanding from folks like yourselves in this leadership road and challenge, and we think we have a good vision for the future, and we think we can help all Oregonians seize that hope, that opportunity, if we're able to put these four strands of this rope together. To conclude, I think community colleges have had several things that really distinguish them: the accessibility, the affordability, the adaptability, and certainly the accountability, which so many folks like our elected boards and advisory committees and state legislature and accrediting bodies help us to achieve. Thank you, and I'm very hopeful that community colleges can be and continue to be the focus for students and people of all ages realizing their dreams in Oregon.
I'm David Kish. I'm a volunteer board member at Portland Community College and have been involved with the board for about 10 years in a variety of different aspects. And first, I'd like to just thank the three gentlemen here and congratulate the institutions that they represent on serving the community so well and doing such a fine job. The community colleges provide a tremendous support for the community, and without them, we wouldn't be the same wonderful community that we are. My question has to do with funding, and I think Dr. Moriarty mentioned the shift in funding away from local control back to state control. Community colleges are becoming state-funded institutions, and with that, we lose an opportunity to have some voice in their development of programs and various services to the community. So the question is, with that shift to state funding, how do we keep the community and community colleges, and what's the community role in helping form the programs for the community colleges?
Why don't I attempt an answer to that? I think the State Department of Ed and various folks have really, even though the money is shifted to the state, they've really emphasized a concept that is important to people in Oregon, and that is the concept of local control. So we really feel, our boards feel very strongly that they do have really full freedom to respond to local needs. But they're not operating with a purse anymore. There's no ability to interact with the people on the level of, if you will, making a contract with the people that will do X for Y. We'll provide these programs, these services with this kind of support, and people will vote on it as they sometimes do with the school districts. What really is left for the local community is, I think, a couple of different things, two things. One is to be a very strong advocate for the kind of programs and services that exists in the community colleges, and it affects such a variety of people. And the second part is that John suggested, is that there is an opportunity to help us. The only way they can help us financially is with capital facilities now. You can't really go back for any strengthening of the local base or the tax base or even local options, because that gets folded into a formula and goes gulp, it disappears. So what happens if you want to, if the new partnership that I see developing is a partnership where the state provides the operational money and the student, and the local community begins to provide the capital facilities and equipment needs and the upgrading of technology. But it's still a very difficult road because there is not every college. Portland Community College happens to have a very, very large tax base. And so when we go out for, like this May, we go out for $144 million, which sounds like a lot of money because it really is a lot of money. It costs 13 cents on the average of $1,000. But not every district is set up that way. If you go downstate, you go into some of the smaller community colleges, it's not possible to do that. So the problem of facilities still exists for a community college. But at least that's one way in which the colleges or the local communities can respond.
I'm Carol Witherell, member of City Club. I do have a question, but first I've been asked to make an announcement. When Lloyd was describing the sign-up procedures for Back to School Week, you may have noticed on your tables that there is no such sign-up available. So from a quick jaunt out into the lobby, I've been asked to announce that if you are interested in getting involved with the Back to School Week, you can either come talk with me individually, I'm sitting right here, or you can fill out on one of the question cards your name and address and phone number and hand it to me, and I will collect those and take them to our staff outside. My question is, in what ways are you involved with high schools and the recent reform efforts, the recent statewide reform efforts, whether in curriculum or curriculum streaming or apprenticeships, collaborative programs, assisting minority or low-income students? What do some of those connections look like now between the community colleges and the high schools?
If I may, thank you very much for the question. If I may respond partially to that, we in East County are very fortunate in that we do have a very, very strong relationship with our 8 school districts on the western boundary of David Douglas and Park Groves to the eastern boundary of Corbett and the Orient Trail school districts. We have engaged in partnerships with those school systems with our School to Work via our Tech Prep program. We have a wonderful program with Boeing Electronics and each of the high schools. Through the leadership again of Michael Dillon and corporations such as LSI and Fujitsu and the city of Gresham, we have a clean room on the campus as part of our microelectronics program in which high school students can avail themselves of that training, participate in that initiative, and then pursue that career as an option. It's gotten to the point where we have created unique in-house programs for both LSI and Fujitsu in putting together 2-year either operators or technicians licensing. We have the Health Academy. We have also partnered with the Oregon Council for Hispanic Advancement and have on campus the Oregon Leadership Institute, in which we attract approximately 30 high school juniors and seniors and sophomores to the campus. We bring them in on Saturdays. And again, I understand that these are 14, 15-year-olds that are giving up their Saturdays for approximately 15 weeks out of the year in which they take leadership training. And the main aim there is to ensure that they stay in school. The dropout rate in some of our high schools, especially for Mexican-American/Latino students, can hit as high as 50%. We need, again, I get back to the theme that we need to make the investment in our future, and our future are our kids today. So those are just examples of some of the examples that we have in partnerships with our K through 12. Every year we host an appreciation luncheon for the counselors. We have got to the point of engaging by discipline area in both in most of the discipline areas there at the college with our K through 12 high school partners in looking at the SIM and the CAM requirements to make certain that the transition of the youngster from the high school to the college, if I may use that old adage, becomes a seamless transfer right there. And we one last point here, and I apologize for dragging this on, but no, I don't. Is that we have a penetration rate of 33% with our high schools, meaning that out of every 100 high school students that graduate in each of our high schools, 33 of those students attend Mount Hood Community College.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meg McGill, City Club member and Chemeketa Community College. In the evening and weekend program that I work with and in our college in general, the vast majority of the students are part-time. Over 80% of my students are part-time. And I'm wondering what we struggle with and work hard on is how to extend services to those part-time students, how to communicate with them and get them to identify with the college. I'd love to hear some of the things you're doing.
May I? Thank you. We have an office. As I said, I came on campus about 4 years ago. 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, we created the Evening and Weekend College, which is staffed by a full-time administrator. We have comprehensive services that are afforded to individuals Monday through Friday until 10 o'clock in the evening and Saturdays from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a full-time staff member Monday night, so the administrator in charge works Tuesday through Saturday. And then on Monday, we rotate the evening coverage among the entire administrative staff, and I have participated as valiantly as I can in that Monday coverage myself. Although my staff, which is sitting in this table right here, encourages me to go do something else so that I can be the least disruptive. The other thing that we have made a commitment to is we have committed to staff development activities for our adjunct part-time faculty. And we have staff development activities for them throughout the year. But we make certain that someone is present who can respond to the needs, not only of the students that you've identified, but equally important for us is our staff. We also have a community service office that is personed, staff there from about 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night to provide telephone coverage Monday through Friday and then through Saturday as well.
Any other colleges? Some of the...
Well, I think Chemeketa has been a wonderful model for reaching out into the communities that you serve, and you probably could get up here and give a very nice presentation about that, because I think what colleges have tried to do is get presence in diverse communities that are in their districts, and it's not just Salem, of course, that Chemeketa serves, but a variety of other communities in that region, and to have an office, a presence, to have people there that can pick up the phone and help to have that kind of face-to-face service that a lot of people need, because a lot of the folks that I think want to avail themselves of community college services, many of them are very sophisticated, but for many of them, as you know, that's a big challenge. That's their first step toward education after high school.
Good, thanks.
I'm Beverly Bookin, a member of the City Club, and my question is to Dr. Moriarty. You mentioned the $144 million bond issue. Could you please summarize where those expenditures are allocated and tell those of us who are members of the City Club who are supportive of your agenda how we might help you get that bond issue passed?
The $144 million is divided into three parts. One is for new buildings, the other is for upgrading existing facilities, and the third part is repairing buildings. The smallest part is repairing the facilities. The next smallest part is building new buildings, and the bulk of it is in upgrading what we actually have. The way the money is broken out is $55 million of the dollars are scheduled for the Cascade campus. And then I think the rest are kind of split between some of our open campus, Rock Creek, and Sylvania. Our goal is to try to have 3 comprehensive campuses. It's a goal we've been working on for 14, 15 years. We think we can afford that, although the jury is still out on that, and I think the bond election will tell us whether we can afford 3 comprehensive campuses. We have one at Sylvania. Rock Creek is lacking capacity, lacking some of the essential elements that make up a comprehensive campus, and that goes double, triple at the Cascade campus, where they, in fact, have 1 science facility on the entire campus. So that's basically the way, I thank you for the question, obviously, but that's the way the thing is broken out. And the window we're looking at is a 10-year window. So we're trying to estimate it with the growth in population, our current penetration rate, what is the capacity that we will need. The Sylvania campus basically is going to be capped out in 1 or 2 years simply because we can't bring any more traffic up 49th Street. It's just not going to be physically possible to do that. So any growth that's going to happen, and it will happen inevitably over the next 10 years if we do nothing. If we just eliminated our admissions office, it'll still happen. We'll get that kind of growth. We've had 14 terms of successive growth after a lull there where we were plateaued out. So the enrollment will inevitably come, and Dr. Vela has referred to that. People will be there. The population growth that we get from the people that track demography and so forth tells us it's going to be there. So we continue to serve the same percent, then it will grow. So we need the capacity. So that's pretty much a summary of it. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is James Posey. I'm a member of the City Club, and my question relates to the last question. First of all, though, I'd like to say that at Cascade, we're very pleased with the progress, the buildings and the growth that we've seen at Cascade, so we're very happy with that. The other item that we're most pleased with is Dr. Mildred Olay, who's really brought tremendous improvement to our campus. And if you want to get in trouble in Northeast Portland, just mess with Dr. But you know, the last bond measure didn't pass, and you know, we feel like in Northeast Portland that we're low on the totem pole, as it were. Excuse that analogy here, but the reality is that that bond measure did not pass, and as a result of that, we are seeing the disparity in the campuses in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the services in the area where ostensibly there's the most need. Right. And so we're trying to figure out how can you reconcile that. And now we're coming up on this bond measure, and I don't see anything too much different in terms of motivating the rest of the community to put energy and resources into changing that to the extent that we will, in fact, begin to close the gap between those other campuses in Cascade. So do you have any suggestions, any thoughts on how we can really make that effort?
You know, that's really exciting to hear you talk that way. You know, we have a plan, and you know, we have an organization called Friends of PCC, and it happens that David Kish, the other white-haired person on this dais, go right by the radio audience, but David Kish is the chair of the Friends of PCC, and you know, we have a group of about 10 or 12 people. We have hired a professional organizer, political organizer. We're trying to do everything right. We've worked very hard in Washington County because that's where we lost the last time. We won big, I think, by any measure. We won 55-45 in Portland, and we lost by the same measure in Washington County, and that just won't do it. So we've concentrated a lot in Washington County, gotten the endorsements of all the chambers. We've gotten endorsements. Proud to say we got an endorsement from the Argus in Hillsborough. Think about that one. That was a major, major coup to get that, and we talked to the scanner yesterday. So we expect, quite frankly, to get endorsements from every single newspaper that serves our community. We expect to get the endorsements of all the chambers, and but I think the kind of the knock on the door, individual stuff, James, that I think you're suggesting here, I'm not sure how we get a handle on that. We're working with a budget of $150,000, and by any political campaign, that's just a drop in the bucket. It basically pays for about 2 mailings. So we have a long way to go on that. So any help that you can offer. But Dr. Olay is like a one-person band out in the community, trying to whip up support, knocking on doors and accosting people in the street and so forth. So with that kind of leadership, I think we'll do well in the community. But we appreciate your help, and I know you're very active in a number of different ways.
Harriet Watson, City Club member. In so many ways, clearly the community college is the poster child for access to higher education and the democratization of higher education. What, if any, kind of conversation is currently taking place between you and your colleagues, both locally, regionally, and nationally, about expanding the mission from a 2-year degree into a 4-year baccalaureate degree?
Well, I do think that's a national trend. A lot of community colleges and universities have worked together very closely. I think it's a natural result of that trend of partnership between the community colleges and 4-year baccalaureate sectors. Witness what's happening at Central Oregon Community College, where they are had that debate up there in that part of the state for a good deal of time. Does Central, the community college, become a university, or is it some other partnership? And right now it seems like the weight of decision makers in the state is on, well, it's going to be some other kind of partnership, but the bottom line for citizens and consumers of education is that they would have that opportunity right there in a large part of the state that isn't served currently by a university. So it's a partnership consortium that seems to be delivering that. I think in certain parts of the country where community colleges have a presence in the community and the population area that they serve is somewhat isolated from the delivery of a baccalaureate degree, that makes a lot of sense. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense here in the metro area from my point of view, because we have those kinds of partnerships that are already in motion. Dan mentioned one with Oregon State. All of us have good partnerships with PSU. When students come to Clackamas, they're jointly admitted to Clackamas and Portland State University. So those kinds of things, I think, are already happening without their extra costs of building a baccalaureate delivery system.
If I may just expand a little bit on John's comments, the other thing that we are engaged with is that we have entered into agreements with Eastern Oregon University, Oregon Institute of Technology, and Oregon State University to offer upper division courses on our campus. So in the evening and or on the weekends, these institutions offer 2 or 3 classes to provide opportunities for students to pursue upper division, junior and senior level courses. We also co-list a number of those courses, if not all of those courses in our schedule on a term-by-term basis. And again, I would echo John's comments as well, that I would be not somewhat, but very hesitant about attempting to convert Mount Hood into a 4-year institution, because one, we would lose the purpose for which we were created. And we have a much more comprehensive mission than most, if not all, of the 4-year institutions, not only in the state of Oregon, but certainly across the country.
Good afternoon. I'm Nels Hall, a member of the City Club. I have a follow-up question to the last question which you've just addressed, and that is, in my experience, one of the real successes that to a degree has been weakened in the last 20 years, but in community college coordination with 4 college systems, was California's system, in which someone, say in Oakland or in LA, could go to any community college. They could sign up for a course, and they would know that that was going to be accepted for direct transfer to any state institution or any university, and they were coordinated. Are there any discussions with the Oregon State Board of Higher Education to look at some kind of coordination that would open the accessibility and to a degree coordinate the myriad of partnerships that I know are going on and you've talked about today, but to a degree, a coordinated approach could, I think, could benefit everyone?
Just to begin an answer to that, in a very specific way, there is an articulation board that was set up by the legislature, and it consists of people from all the sectors, and actually it has a school superintendent on it, community college people, and the university people, but what their focus is more narrow. It's not programmatic, which I think you're suggesting. It's more on the transferability of courses, and I think it's fairly ironclad now. And I have to admit, if the legislature did not come down heavy on this, I think we'd still be struggling with the articulation of some of our courses, which makes absolutely no sense, because all the courses are paid for by the taxpayer. They all meet Northwest Association standards. Everybody is kind of up to date in Oregon, you know, as the song goes. We're all up to date. So that has been worked out very effectively. But what you're suggesting, a kind of a programmatic coordination on a university level, I don't think exists. So a lot of it is very specific to Oregon State or to OIT. So right now, I think at our college, we have a conversation with Oregon State. We have one going on with OIT, and we just entered a whole new conversation with the Hill. What's that called again? OHSU. I was going to say OSHE, but no, that doesn't work. We have OHSU, and we have a whole new relationship with them that's beginning to build. So we have 3 or 4 things right now that are in the hopper. And I think that says more about the way we are, you know, as individual institutions, because I think that's a very important value in the culture in Oregon, is the individual and the individual institution and so forth. But I think the cooperation is at a very high level. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I think in Oregon it's very good. People are just very open, very positive, very accessible, and there's just all kinds of room for working together. So it's a brand new day, and I'm very optimistic.
Nels, there is a set of courses. It's called the AAOT program, where it's clearly stated that students can take those courses any place and have them transfer and have them fully credited toward an associate's degree, but also a baccalaureate degree. That was probably a major breakthrough made a few years ago.
Charlie Davis, member of the club. We've been spoken to rather directly by the governor, I think by the presidents of each of the universities, to tell us that if we do not have an educated workforce, that the economy will pass us by. I don't think we've ever heard anybody say if we have a politically illiterate population, we'll continue to have the level of intelligence in the legislature that we've had the last 10 years. I'm wondering about the people 18 to 34 years old who leave your institutions well versed in the mechanics of making a living, but illiterate, as are most of us in the 18 to 34 age group. who have done so little to change the political environment which is required for the 21st century. Is there something going on that I don't know about, or is it just something that everybody else takes care of?
No, I feel very passionately about this. I think our purpose is, you know, we don't work, and this may sound like heresy, we don't work for Intel or Fujitsu. You know, we work for the citizens of this community. And our goal is to turn out, help people to become educated, civic-minded citizens. And in fact, you know, the theme of our in-service next year, you know, is going to be entirely devoted to how do we have an engaged college campus, working with the community, educating people. Because we're not into, this is not turning out bottle caps here. We're talking about educating human beings to be full-bore citizens, to be effective in terms of skills, but also be effective as citizens participating in their community. That's our goal. And we have all kinds of ways of seeing that that happens through general education and so forth. But we're not in the business of just being a subsidiary for a major industry. I don't see myself or our institution in that way.
One of the things that all of us do is involve our students in our governance process, and also in the state governance process. We have a very active student group that works with legislators to deliver the story. So we do a lot of citizen education with students through our student government and our student leadership programs. Hoel had mentioned one earlier, and I think some of those are working very well. Some of those folks are active and very effective citizens today as a result of that.
Time for one more brief question.
The brevity is relative in the way of answers. John Leeper, City Club member. I am wondering, gentlemen, and I want to personally commend all of you for the work that you do, as well as the stature of the colleges that you're with. How does your faculty measure up in the way of academic and or experience credentials with that in Oregon's four-year institutions?
In general, let me speak specifically. The brief answer is yes. We take a very active posture in our recruiting efforts to ensure, and again to assure, that our faculty come in with the highest credentials possible. I cannot give you today the percentages of our faculty who possess the terminal degree, but I'm going to